So our broad definition here is that toxic positivity is the excessive and ineffective overgeneralization of a happy, optimistic state across all situations. It's this idea that happiness and positivity is an optimism the only way forward. It's this suggestion. I think that Aisling put it really well. You know, oh, it wasn't Aisling, it was someone else who said, yeah, Stephanie said, the good vibes only. Yeah, you know, that kind of, you're not welcome here if you haven't got this thing we're calling good vibes. This is the idea that, you know, you should be positive, I should be positive, we should all be positive all the time, and asking the question of, okay, well, you know, it's because it's insidious, because it's like has this sense of, oh, that sounds reasonable. Yes, surely we all want to be happy all the time, don't we? Isn't that what everybody wants? And I certainly have lots of conversations with people, you know, meaning of life conversations, and so many people we come across say, well, surely the meaning of life is to be happy. Isn't that what we all want? And then there's this slippery slope into, well, therefore we should all be happy all the time. The trouble is, as you've identified there in the chat, which is fantastic, is that positivity isn't always so positive. And I'm really aware here that before I even go on, we haven't even defined what positivity is, and that's a really slippery concept, and I'll come back to that in the webinar. But when you stop to think about it, what is positivity, and I bet you're like me, you'll have this kind of presumption of, well, doesn't it mean being optimistic and feeling good and having good vibes and you know, being nice to people all the time? Isn't that what we mean by positivity? And when you actually do the homework, and of course I've done the homework, you realize actually that's not what positivity has always meant. And actually it's only had this kind of this sort of aspect to it in the last 70 years. This isn't a human thing. This is a very, very recent cultural phenomenon, that this idea that human beings could or should be positive. There is a particular branch of psychology that's called positive psychology, and positive psychology is really interested in what makes people happy, and it was, you know, it was quite consciously a reaction to a perception of psychology that psychology was always interested in when things went wrong and what to do when things went wrong. And the positive psychologist said, well, what if we start to focus on, you know, when things go right? You know, what if we start to focus on what gives people strength, what gives people resilience, what leads to people feeling connected, what leads to people feeling happier? And so they started to focus on that kind of direction. So that's one way of defining positive. Another way comes through cognitive psychology. Now, cognitive psychology has over the years, and cognitive psychology it's not very old. It's only been around 40 odd years, maybe 50 years. And it has a concept of negative thoughts and negative thinking. And the idea of cognitive psychology is that you want to challenge negative thinking. And what that sets up, and it doesn't really think about, it doesn't really talk about positive thinking. It really talks about negative thinking and how to challenge it. And the purpose of challenging negative thinking isn't to turn negative thoughts into positive thoughts, as you might think. The purpose of challenging what they call negative thinking is to make is to sort of refocus on reality. I think that's a really interesting perspective, because it really shifts, you know, what's the opposite of negative? Well, we say it's positive, and we have this sense that positive is this kind of, you know, fluffy, well-being, good vibes attitude, but actually it's not. And actually, I'm going to jump ahead. I'd actually put further in my presentation slide on definitions, and when you go into what they call the etymology, like the history of language, and you look at, when was the word positive first used, and how was it used, and it's first seen in the 15 to 1600s. And when you look at the original way that this word was used, it was actually used to describe that which can be affirmed, reality. So positive isn't about being good vibey and happy and feeling good. Positivity is actually about being real. And I think that that's just a really, wouldn't it be, I'd really love it if we could return to that, because that's what it means in cognitive science. And that's what it's historically meant in the English language. And it's only in the last 50 to 70 years, with actually a book that was published in 1953 called The Power of Positive Thinking, that this movement towards, how we should be has come in, and it's gotten away from this original definition of actually, looking at the facts and looking at what can be understood. To say a little bit more about cognitive psychology, before they used the word negative to describe thinking and thought patterns and belief systems, they used the language of adaptive and maladaptive. And adaptive and maladaptive, in terms of your belief systems and your thoughts, refers to, your thoughts are adaptive if they support you to achieve your goals. So if I have a thought about my capacity or my abilities, and it enables me to achieve my goals, then that's great. If I need to keep myself safe because I'm living in a violent situation, I'm living in a war zone, and my thoughts are always looking for where the dangers are. And I'm using war zones rather than most of the examples in psychology are actually childhood examples. I'm living in a dangerous environment as a child, which many people can relate to. Then I'm always sort of looking for dangers, and I'm looking for where the next threat is coming from. And it's adaptive because by thinking that way, I keep myself safe and keep myself alive. What the cognitive psychologists say, and the original thinker behind this was a gentleman by the name of Aaron Beck. He's actually still alive. I think he's about 100 now, and he's still working. And what Aaron Beck said was that our adaptive thinking patterns, because they're always adaptive, when we're growing up, we adopt these thought patterns. But you can imagine being in a war zone, like a refugee in a war zone. You're thinking this way, it's always dangerous, and it keeps you alive. And then you've got to escape, and then you've got to get to a new country, and you've got to sort of navigate the system. But then you're living in this new society where it's actually pretty safe, people are pretty cool, and there's a different kind of purpose to life. It's not about staying safe and keeping yourself alive. It's now about kind of getting ahead and getting involved in the social systems, getting involved in the economic systems, and getting involved in your community and society. And that way of thinking that was adaptive in your war zone is no longer adaptive. It's now maladaptive, and because it actually gets in the way of you achieving your goals. And at some point, and I haven't quite been able to track down exactly when this was, these ideas of adaptive and maladaptive got distorted into negative and positive. And I think it's much more helpful to think of it in terms of, what is it about how I am that supports me to achieve my goals and maybe the goals of the team or the group? And what is it about me that gets in the way of achieving my goals and the goals of the group? And one of the things about toxic positivity is that it can actually get in the way. Actually, we know that it very often does get in the way of both individuals and the team achieving the goals that they're setting out to achieve. And this is because positivity, and the toxic positivity, the pervasive positivity, the expectation of positivity, can result in the denial, minimization, and invalidation of authentic human emotional experience. In other words, it shuts people down. I think Stephanie put that really well. It shuts people down, and people sort of start to think, believe that it's not okay in their environment, in their social system, in their workplace, in their team, to be them. Yeah? They start to feel that they need to hide, they need to pretend. And interestingly, I'm doing another webinar tomorrow on the imposter syndrome. And really, when you think about it, the imposter syndrome, which is the belief that I need to go to a workplace, for the most part it's a workplace, and show up as someone other than who I am, who I experience myself to be, in order to succeed in that workplace, is often driven by a culture of toxic positivity, a culture where there's an expectation that to fit in around here, to be okay around here, you have to be a particular way. And so pervasively happy people who always have a cheery outlook and have a smile plastered on their face actually sort of can create an environment that isn't safe, that inhibits authentic experiencing and authentic expression from the people around them. if you can sort of think of examples of this in your past or your present workplaces, it'd be great if you could share them in the chat, because one of the things that I'm not generating so much of is kind of the examples of this. So if you think of, oh yeah, this happened and that happened in the workplace. I remember this person said this, and I felt like, oh well, I'm going to shut up then. Pop that in the chat. So there's more serious consequences. There's flow-on effects of this, because believing that we need to hide who we are leads to feelings of shame. And when we feel shame, that what we do when we're shamed is we hide. And when we hide ourselves, then we become isolated. And so, you might find yourself working in environments surrounded by people, but feeling very much alone. So both isolation, aloneness, and also the suppressing of our feelings in itself leads us to feel stress, and then stress and tension, a lot of stress and tension in our body. You can literally, it's like your emotions are a ball or a balloon, and when we suppress them, we kind of have to compress them. And what that compression of our emotions does within our body, my hands are disappearing, in our body, is that creates tension. So that tension, we call that tension stress. Yeah. And then as that tension persists and is continued, and then we add other stresses on top from our life and from our workplace, we start to develop mental illnesses like anxiety, depression, and this ultimately leads to physical illnesses like heart disease. And so those are really serious consequences from this seemingly benevolent, how good is life, and we all have to be happy and good vibes only. And then people within a team, and if people within a team can't be real with other people within their team, including their leaders, then this leads to a toxic team environment and reduced team effectiveness. And I can tell you, through working in EAP and receiving phone calls from employees and middle managers and even senior managers, the number one, like when they're not talking about their personal lives and COVID and what the other really serious things that are happening in their life, the number one most common thing that I'm hearing from people is that they can't talk to their manager, that their manager doesn't want to hear what they've got to say, that their manager is dismissive, disinterested, expects them to be a particular way and won't allow them to be themselves or any other way. So what are we talking about here? How do we actually know? What are we looking at when we what are we looking for when we're looking for toxic positivity? And it's so insidious because it seems so benign. It's things like, it'll be fine, don't worry about it. Hey, smile, you should smile more, put a smile on your face, turn that frown upside down. Just don't worry about it. It could be worse. It could be worse. Don't worry, be happy. Oh, come on, that's a first world problem. We don't want to get stuck in that. Don't be so negative. I like Stephanie's positive vibes only. Oh, come on, we've always got to look on the bright side. Everything happens for a reason. Think happy thoughts. Oh, don't be such a Debbie Downer. Stay positive. So these are things that we all hear, we all say. I said I was going to share a little bit of, when do I say these things? And the strange things is that often I say these sorts of things in a workplace when I'm feeling a lot of pressure, when I'm feeling like I'm overwhelmed, when I've got a lot going on. And there's often a feeling in a workplace where, you feel, particularly as a manager, if you get one more thing on your plate, you'll just crack. And so what you do is you kind of create a bubble. You go, you know what? I can't handle anything more. I've got enough. So I'm going to keep it out. And one of the things we keep out is other people's genuine experience. And this is one of the ways that we can do it. So we know that you or someone else is affected by toxic positivity when they feel that they have to hide or mask their true feelings. If you get the sense that, and people will often they'll be very quiet. They'll talk in a monotone. They'll kind of go, oh, well, and you get this sense of, you're just telling me what I want to hear. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're telling you what they think you want to hear because they don't think that you can hear the truth. People just try to get on with it. They start denying or dismissing their own emotions. You see a lot of tension in people. You might see kind of little snaps of irritability followed by a lot of guilt. Sorry. Oh, I'm just, lots of excuses. Oh, it's just because of this and it's just because of that. And what that means is that they feel like they're not allowed to feel upset. They're not allowed to feel frustrated. They're not allowed to feel stressed or distressed. And just a genuine an underlying sense that people within the team don't think that it's okay to show up to work as themselves. And what's really interesting about this is when we come to talk about preventing toxic positivity. And Tim's asking, how do I determine when positivity helps and when positivity is received negatively? And I guess, you want to think about what you mean by positivity, and it's very much aligned with goals. And think about, well, what's my goal? How do I what's my goal in this relationship? What am I wanting to achieve, and what am I wanting from that other person? And really thinking about, how you engage with that. So we've redefined positive. I think the really interesting topic here for leaders is to think about, because what we want is effective teams, and how does toxic positivity fit into effective teams? And Google did some really extensive research. They were trying to work out how to make their organization better, how to make it run smoothly, how to get their teams performing. So they did some really extensive, really well put together research. And they were generally open to, finding out, was it the people in the team? Was it the style of leadership? Was it the combination of people? Was it the intelligence? Was it the emotional intelligence? What was it? And hands down, the biggest contributor to the most effective teams was this concept that they described as psychological safety. And this has been verified in a range of other settings. One of which is in hospital settings, specifically, where they were looking at hospitals that made a lot of mistakes and hospitals that didn't make a lot of mistakes. And what they found is that the hospitals with the best people, like the best doctors, they tended to make more mistakes than other hospitals that didn't have such good people, or so it seemed on paper. And the research in these different areas came up with the same finding, that team members experience psychological safety when they feel safe enough to take risks and be vulnerable with one another. So this is what's critical. And what does that mean? What does it mean to feel safe enough to take risks and to be vulnerable with one another? And what it means is that in a workplace, in a team environment, if you want that team to thrive, then everybody in the team needs to be able to feel and to express out loud that they feel ignorant, that they feel incompetent, that they are feeling negative, they're feeling angry or annoyed or upset, that it's okay to be disruptive, that being disruptive can sometimes be seen as a good thing, that it's okay to look stupid, to say, hey, I don't understand, or why are we doing this? It's okay to say, you know what? I don't understand what we're talking about. How come I'm out of the loop here? What's going on? It's okay to look foolish. It's okay to get things wrong, to say, I think this is what we should do, and realize that actually that was really dumb and we shouldn't do that. It's okay to be too much. A lot of people have a fear of being too much. I speak too much. I say too much. I've got too many opinions. And this is certainly my experience in the workplace. I'm a big guy and I've got lots of energy and I have lots of ideas, and I'd always have lots to say. But then I had got the feeling in a lot of teams like I was too much for other people, and I was crowding them out, and I needed to squash myself, to just button it up because it was too much for other people. Other people feel like they're not enough. That's the imposter syndrome. They sort of sit back wide-eyed and just quietly listen and think, oh, nobody wants to hear about my ideas. But psychologically safe teams make all of that okay. It means that people are able to take risk. And what it means is that where there's problems, they get spoken about. Where there's issues, they get raised. And people are okay with saying, there's a problem here, there's an issue here, I feel shit about this, I feel crap about that, I don't like this, I don't like that, I'm sick of this, I'm sick of that. Why do we have to do it this way? And all of that is welcome in a psychologically safe team. And remember, Google found that these are the most effective teams. So how do you do this as a leader? Three big steps. This is Amy Edmondson, one of the researchers who conducted a lot of this research, particularly in hospitals. And she said the three big things are, as a leader, make sure you encourage openness. Make sure you lead by example, and you actually, if somebody's raising a problem, raising an issue, you kind of welcome it with open arms. You go, yeah, what are you thinking about that? Where does that come from? Tell me more about that. What can we do about that? That's number three. Modeling curiosity. Be curious. Ask lots of questions. Actually demonstrate to your team members that you want to know what's going on, that actually you value their feelings, because a lot of the time things are going wrong, and we kind of don't know intellectually or cognitively always why they're going wrong, but we have a gut feeling. I've got one of these going on at the moment. I've been getting some information from a group of people outside of our organisation. Actually, they're billing us, and they're billing us quite a lot, and it kind of looks right on paper, but I've got this gut feeling that there's something wrong with it, and I can feel my hesitancy. I'm not the right person to deal with it, but I want to raise it. But I'm like, I don't want to be a problem. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to, I don't want to look like the employee that's right. But what if there's really an issue there, and it's costing our organisation a lot of money, and I don't raise it? I don't listen to my gut. So we really want to listen to that. And the way you do, and then you do that yourself. You acknowledge your own fallibility. You share your vulnerabilities. Sharing your vulnerabilities very often sounds like, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think I stuffed that up. I think I messed that one up. I'm having, actually, you know what? I'm having a hard time at the moment. Oh man, COVID's really getting me down. I'm over this. Really is feeling willing and able in team meetings and in one-to-ones with your staff to go, you know what? I'm not okay. And there's this kind of catch cry that's really helpful, this kind of message. And psychological safety says it's okay to not be okay. And as a leader, it's up to us to say, you know what? I'm okay with not being okay. Running out of time, I've got about a minute to go. So some of the specifics around, in terms of how we communicate, it'll all be fine and things like that. Instead of saying it'll be fine, say, how can I help you? How can we help you? Instead of saying you should smile more, actually ask, is everything okay? Instead of saying, don't worry about it, ask, what can we do to make things less stressful for you? Instead of saying, oh, well, things could be worse, say, this seems tough. Can I do anything? Can we do anything? Instead of saying, don't be so negative, say, it must be hard. Tell me about it. Instead of saying everything happens for a reason, ask the person, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to tell me about it? Instead of saying, think happy thoughts, say, I know things can be tough. I'm here for you. Be willing to go to that place that has recently started to be called negative. Because it's not negative. What it is all of what we're calling negative is people's genuine attempts to deal with reality. So really reframe that thinking for yourself of, it's not about being positive, it's not about being negative. It's about going, well, what's really going on here, and being really interested in what's really going on, even if there's like underlying, even if you're not sure what's going on there, sort of listen to your team members' underlying feelings and go, okay, well, let's tease that out. If you've got a gut feeling about something, what's going on there? Our gut, very powerful. Okay, key takeaways, and we'll finish here. There is definitely such a thing as too much positivity. I've had people ring up and just go, oh my God, I'm anxious and I'm distressed and I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. My manager gave me feedback that I'm too negative. And they're just like, I don't even know what it means. What do they mean? I'm like, I don't know what they mean. You have to ask them. Oh, I can't ask them because they just think that I'm being negative by asking if I'm too negative because I don't know what negative means. People are really sort of affected by this stuff. Being real is more important than being happy. That actually meaning and purpose, if you look at some of our other webinars, meaning and purpose are the ingredients. Meaning, purpose, gratitude, connection. They're what's most important in life. And actually this kind of quest for happiness is a very short-term thing that's actually led to our very addictive society and the world where we think that we're supposed to consume and feel happy and consume and feel happy. When it comes to people and their feelings, and I think there's a bit of a response to Tim too, seek to support and understand. Yeah, seek to listen, seek to understand, ask questions about what's happening. But you don't need to fix it. Yeah, it's a big step to go, you know what? I don't need to fix you, but I'm willing to listen and I'm willing to understand. All right. Thank you, everybody.